So I had never come to Audium before. I looked it up and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what? 6 months paid to learn? I immediately wanted to apply and not only apply, but just connect. Like, who are the people behind this and how can I experience this thing?
My impression of Audium was that it would be a time capsule of the 70s, like avant-garde sound practice. I thought it would be a lot of like synth noises, a lot of bleep and bloops kind of spatialized all over, with shag carpet.
Well, since I was born, I've always had bad eyesight. And I think that I was always kind of drawn to sound. When I was 5, a kid in my preschool class came in to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the violin for show and tell. And I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen another little kid do. And so I went to my mom and asked if I could start taking violin lessons. And then I did the Suzuki method, so it was very much ear training based.
I always had access to instruments to play around the house. I also was born with kind of a speech impediments and dyslexia, and I think that having that experience, that kind of delayed speech, shaped the way that I hear. Growing up in a Victorian house, there were floorboards that would always creak, that I would be in conversation with, and the sound of pigeons in San Francisco. I was always really fascinated by sounds of the natural world.
I started doing things like making sound-sensitive wearables or sound-producing wearables. I started producing my own speakers and like perverting what a speaker could be, like turning a cassette tape into a speaker. More recently, I've been doing experimentations with records, which has been a crazy rabbit hole. So like the first thing I did was I made these acrylic nails. Oh my gosh, my nails look so terrible now, but these acrylic nails with record needles in them, so you could play up to 4 tracks of a record at once. I guess like my love of sound or experimental music and sound has led me into these kinds of more like sculptural, like visual explorations of sound as well.
All sound has intrinsic motion to it. When you hear sound in a cyclical pattern, it has this sense of going around. When you hear sound ascending in pitch, it has upward motion. And so the idea of being able to play with those expectations of movement and space, working with sound as a material, that is really, really creatively interesting to me.
It was, a huge relief of how down to earth everybody was and how open-minded everyone was. It seemed like no idea was too bizarre or crazy. It was immediately like, oh, how would we do that? Or we've actually already done that. It's like, oh, I can be weird here, that's cool.
It's much more contemporary than I initially had thought. The other thing is it's a lot more immersive than I had thought. I did not realize there would be complete darkness in there, and it was like, I have a feeling that a lot of people are also fighting their inner demons while they're listening.
You know, you go from the box office where it's a tiny kind of enclosed space where you really feel everyone's presence around you, to the lobby, which is much bigger.
So when you were hearing, and we play sound through that, you can hear it racing along the walls. And then
I feel like Audium is such a great system to learn spatialization on because it's so unique.
I'm really excited to work with a system that isn't standard, that has a lot of quirks and dusty corners and things to figure out, but also working with somewhere that has a character. It's not just about the fact that you have tons of channels and tons of speakers in space. You have an atmosphere, you have an approach, you have an aesthetic. So I think I'd really like to explore that, kind of doing more than just composing the music, composing an experience, composing how people move through space.
I think that there is a profound opportunity for participants to go inward in this experience, something that's harder and harder to do with all the distractions of the modern world.
Kind of suspending space and place and time for people in a really extreme way. You can bring someone totally out of the world that they were just in here. Even strangers going through something as intense and odd as Audium would come out feeling some sort of connection from the experience. From the experiment.
We're very open to different ideas, and that's going to be kind of the theme of the night.
Dave and Paul are at the helm right now, kind of driving the thoughts, and so it'll be fascinating to hear where some of you guys are from and what your thoughts are about all this.
Seeing kind of how much in flux the place is right now is very exciting.
I think Audium is enacting its greatest potential now by inviting outside artists to come use the space.
I'm still looking for the words to express how powerful this place is. It really almost holds a spirit of its own. I feel like the sky is the limit for what it can be and what it can do. I want to build a relationship with this instrument and see, what kind of conversations we can have together. Okay, so I'm in the middle of my residency here at Audium. I've learned so much. It's been kind of like a sound boot camp.
It's been a lot of learning how the system works, trying to invent new systems that work for me, and also trying to figure out how to kind of get like every single little bit of juice that I can get out of having kind of the full spatial array and the full range of speakers.
It's just like being a kid in the candy store. There's just so many avenues to explore, so many textures, sounds, so many options. And so it's been sort of a challenge to pare down the sound palette that I want to work with, pare down a composition so that it fits within the time constraints.
Knowing how and when to commit to an idea, and also refreshing your own ears, your own like sonic psychology can sometimes be a challenge. It's really easy to imagine what you want and then to be honest about what's actually happening in the space by the time you set things up can be like very different and very challenging. That in itself is a type of game that can take up a lot of time here, where you come across something that you'd like to do and somehow 2 hours go by and you're just troubleshooting how to make the thing do the thing.
We only have 2 more months until we have to present something, and I'm still working on the main piece. The other thing we need to work on is figuring out what to do in the lobby and different kind of video and visual aspects as well.
Initially, I imagined this piece to be very narrative. Now I feel like the space is kind of telling me what it wants the piece to be, where, I'm like, this sounds really right. So now I'm bending the rest of the composition to fit those moments where it sounds really right.
I'm writing a piece on the body. At first I was thinking about how to break the body apart into its constituent sounds and spread it out through the space. Now I think I'm trying to kind of think about the body as a space, and also think about this space with all its characteristics and its personality as almost a body.
I'm designing a piece that is mostly analog, if not all analog sound input, and then I'm trying to kind of like push it to extremes so that maybe the audience doesn't recognize exactly what kind of sound that is. They don't know if that's a synthesizer, if it's something acoustic. Ultimately, what I would like to impart upon the audience would be a sensitivity to sound, a kind of refreshed or renewed enthusiasm for listening. And also maybe an appreciation for dissonance, because there's going to be a lot of dissonance and a lot of really busy, layered sounds in my composition.
view of Audium is always changing. It's been a bit like entering a cave, like pushing through darkness, pushing through illusion, misunderstanding, and excavating deeper and deeper and deeper into how this place works, what's possible.
I love the feeling of coming into this space, which still feels like a treat. I mean, the amount of times I've come in on the weekend and it's been a beautiful sunny day in San Francisco, and I just get so immersed in kind of doing the work here, and I walk out and it's nighttime. It really kind of brings you into the cave that it is. Also, as the mystique faded a bit from the first encounter with the space, it became both more of a kind of co-partner in the composition process and an enemy at times. Really just kind of wrangling with the space and the desire to do all the things that are possible here, but also being severely limited by just how much technology you kind of have to wade through. It's a different way of working, and it's a slow way of working.
My time at Audium has been a roller coaster, kind of not too dissimilar from my piece, I think. It's gotten really intense at times, but at the same time, it's been thoroughly enjoyable, and the endorphins have been running high.
I realize so much of my own emotional landscape becomes amplified in the space. So whatever I'm bringing into this room from the rest of the world grows tenfold.
I think the biggest challenge for me was a lot of the technical hurdles. What has come a lot more easier is just playing with sound, composing, because the entire process has been so fun.
It feels like it encourages oddball behavior a little bit. It encourages the experimental. It encourages the weird.
I feel like this space talks back to you. I come in with an idea, and then the space has a whole other plan of what that idea was about, where it wants to go. It's been kind of a process of trying to manifest, execute an idea, and simultaneously surrendering to what this space wants to be.
The piece is coming along well. I would say it's pretty much done. I've left some room to grow with the piece throughout a series of performances, which also makes me a bit nervous for the premiere because there is still some uncertainty. But I'm trying to embrace that and enjoy that fear that comes with having a little unknown.
Right now it's like a little nerve-wracking, but once you get a few times through it, it's going to feel pretty cool.
I'm looking forward to that place.
Yeah, seriously. We're gonna look back on today and be like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Silly us.
Yeah. I hope that the audience comes with some open-mindedness and leaves with even more open-mindedness.
I want people to feel as though they're listening in a way that's different than normal, everyday listening. The piece is pretty abstract, and so I'm very curious what people come away with.
I think some people will really hate the piece, in all honesty. But I think some people will very much be surprised by themselves, in their enjoyment of the piece. At least this is my hopeful optimism. But I think I will have to steel myself for a lot of walkouts. This little sleeve.
I know, they're just so silly.
This is kind of the culmination of many months of work on the part of our 3 artists in residence who are here tonight. They're going to be performing for you guys, and I'm very excited to see what you guys think.
My performance has been a totally different experience every night. The audience really brings a whole other energy, a whole other dimension to how the piece unfolds.
At first, being in the dark was strange. I couldn't really feel the audience's energy so much. I was able to kind of get deeper into it and start to kind of feel the differences night to night, which were quite subtle sometimes, and other times were really extreme. Audiences would come in with really different energies. Some nights I would feel like my piece was extremely long. Some nights it would pass in what felt like seconds.
I really enjoyed my performances. Personally, I'm not tired of hearing my piece over and over again, and I like that it's been polarizing. Oh my gosh, I got so much feedback. There were people who were telling me that they felt like a lightning rod for sound, that they were getting like struck over and over and over again in a good way. Another colorful but maybe less gleaming reviews was someone said that they felt like they were in Guantanamo Bay, which I mean, I think that is an advertisement. That's like a tagline. Get soundboarded. Anyway.
More than a few people said that they were reminded of their childhood, which I find interesting because I don't think that was my piece so much, but I think just the experience of being in the dark and having all your defenses lowered and listening to sounds in this way brings you back to kind of this early place of experience.
I will probably need 6 more months to really know how this experience has changed me, but it's certainly changed my music practice. It's changed the way that I listen. There's a certain quality of attention that an Audium audience provides that I would like to reach for moving forward.
As I expected, it is very bittersweet. I'm pretty sad that tomorrow will most likely be the last time I hear these 3 pieces ever again.
I think what exceeded my expectations was the relationship building and meeting such cool other weirdos who want to explore this kind of stuff.
This was a little dream to be able to open this place up. So you guys are kind of the first iteration of this new Audium. So hopefully we can keep iterating with you guys. So cheers!
Audium is still mysterious. right when I think I understand what's happening here, somebody else comes along and can completely reinvent what's possible or how things work.
Audium seemed like this giant, untamable beast when I first came here that had like so many different nuances to it, and I think I'm finally understanding exactly the personality of the space.
Well, I definitely understand it a lot more and kind of what goes into creating a space like this, and how much care and love and persistence has to happen behind the scenes.
When I first came here, there was a way that this place felt like a preserved piece of San Francisco, a preserved kind of piece of the past that somehow managed to survive. Now that I'm here, I just feel what is like cutting edge and just like looking towards the future of what's possible.